if not, I can't see the chat, by the way. So Alison and Morris in the chat. So welcome. Having created site.
Actually, Ray, can I ask, do you like the light the way it is now, sort of darkish, or do you turn the light on? The light's on.
Lights on. Yeah, it says.
No, just maybe the lowest setting. Not blinded.
Yeah, it's just.
Okay, we're slightly because it stopped working again. Wouldn't believe it, would you?
Take control.
I will start that again.
So Ray, I'm going to instruct you also that for the online audience, the best experience is if you sort of are aware that this is where the microphone is.
That's the microphone.
Right, thank you.
Okay, let's see if it. Yeah. So this is me. I always put those letters after my name for no other reason that it just shows that I have more letters after my name than there are in my name. Lecture in visual CSN. And for the past 2 and a bit years now, I've been researching AI and creativity. Started off with AI and creative writing. Then it's become broader, more generally about creativity and how AI is impacting on creativity. But wait. Okay, I don't want to send that. Okay, becoming creative cyborgs. What is it, and why so many things that I've done been called it? This is an ongoing action research study that so far has included lectures, workshops, and journal articles. Began with the MA in academic practice here at UAL. When I explored creative writing, AI integration into creative writing teaching, it is now continued. This workshop is part of that research. You do not have to take part in the research, and you just take part in the workshop. Research itself takes on 2 phases. One phase is this workshop. The writing workshop, this presentation I'm going to give, the discussions we're going to have, the writing exercises you're going to do. And the second phase, and this is for those who want to take part in the research project, will be a interview or a discussion in 2 weeks' time when I will meet you on Teams and you'll tell me how what we have discussed today has impacted on your teaching, on your creativity. If you want to, you do not have to take part in the research to take part in the retreat we're going to do. And that goes for you online as well. You don't have to take part in the research. This is just obviously the sort of general points we have to make when we do research. The participation in this research is voluntary. You do not have to take part in the research. You can take part in the retreat. You can do all the exercises, take part in the discussion. You do not have to take part in the research. This session will be recorded. I'm not recording it yet. We will record it.
I see something.
You are recording.
Yes,
It is recorded. Yay. It is being recorded. But everything from this retreat, if you decide to take part in research, will be anonymous. So you will not be mentioned. Engagement with AI during this exercise is completely voluntary. You do not have to use generative AI. You do not want it. If you do consent to taking part in phase 2, which is the interview that happens 2 weeks later, that'll be on Teams, and I will sort of print out a draft of that once we have done it. Interviews will be recorded and transcribed and then deleted. So the workshop data, so workshop from this data from this workshop, if you decide to take part in research, is anonymized. If you decide you do not want to be anonymized once we've done the interview stage, then that's entirely up to you. But you can, up to the point of publication, decide whether you want to be anonymized or not. For those of you in the room, I do have consent forms. So if you do want to take part in the research, you can take a consent form. But you have to sign one and I'll sign one as well. Both have a copy. But the reason for this research, I hope, will become clearer as we sort of the session, and why it's important, and why fundamentally I need your help. So I'm doing it. Okay, so the title of this.
Can I just stop and say, for those online, I'm going to put the consent form is on the Padlet in Ray's column. That's where you access it. And I've gotten a little bit of feedback from those online that you're moving around too much, I'm afraid.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I thought I was standing still. Why is it really?
It's the microphone is here. It's a little bit temperamental when it comes to people moving.
Stand still.
Thank you.
Okay, so into the sort of session itself. GenAI cannot dream of electric sheep, analytic rumination, the Boden Principle, and limits of GenAI creative writing. The title obviously comes from Philip K. Dick's book, and as I think it was mentioned in the verb in the program, as in Philip K. Dick's book, you could tell what was an android and what was not an android because androids have no empathy or emotions, and that's how you could tell. My contention is you can tell what is GenAI and what isn't, because GenAI doesn't think. And you could almost always tell what is a GenAI text. And hopefully that will become clearer as we discuss. I always begin with this quote from Noel Goff, from his essay, Rhodomantically Becoming Cyborg, Performing Post-Human Pedagogies. The kind of cyborgs that we and our children are becoming are shaped and reshaped by the stories we mutually construct. The term cyborg was originally used in 1960 by Kleins and Klein in their essay on enhanced humans living in space. Cyborg obviously has developed since then to include things like the Bionic Man, Terminator, basically enhanced humans with superhuman powers. And then it's been used sort of theoretically by people like that. But in this context, what Noel Goff is talking about is in an educational context, the socio-technological world that we live in impacts on how we learn and we teach. So the kinds of cyborgs that we and our children are becoming are shaped and reshaped by the stories we mutually construct. Okay, so we finally got this working. So just to gauge what kind of cyborgs we have in the room, there is a Mentimeter. I would like you to sort of just scan that QR code. Hopefully you can see it online. And just put in one word, how would you describe your current relationship with GenAI? Fascination's a good one, actually.
Thank you.
Brainstorm BFFs. Oh, that's a very good. GenAI enhances me, so you're full cyborg. Curiophobia, interesting. Tentative is very good. I think you can put in multiple words if you want to. Conflicted, I mean, the size of the word depends on how many people are sort of in that same word. Conflicted seems to be the one. Extensive, meh. That's interesting, meh. Intriguing. I wouldn't have thought mayor would have been something you could do with GenAI. It's there, but I don't really care. Everybody, it's saying sort of 14 responses from 18 people who've logged in. 4 of you still need to throw in a word. But I think just from those words, eerie is another very good word. Just from everything from fascination to GenAI enhances me, explorative, iterative, time-consuming is a very good one. We have to feel the full spectrum of from people who are fully engaged to people who are sort of tentatively engaging. There's still sort of 5 of you who have logged in, but not. Feel free to throw your words in if you want to. I'll give it another minute.
Addictive, new.
Curiophobia is an interesting one. And hopefully we'll sort of touch upon a lot of this. Oh my God, there's 20 of you now logged in. Last 6 of you, throw in words. We're going to move on. Addictive, very good. Brainstorm, best friends. Confused, early on. Disembodied, no soul. Okay, so excellent. That I think is the full spectrum. From fully embracing to being unsure to not embracing at all. I'm excellent. Okay. Okay. So what way do you use it, if you use it at all? So we have data analysis, other research, literature discovery, drafting and writing. I don't think you have to do the QR code again. I think it just changes it automatically when I change the screen. Drafting and writing assistance, editing and translation, idea generation and brains.
So we have to choose one of those.
1, 2, or 3, as many as you like.
It says enter a word. So is it a word or a number? I get choices. Are you in the
Yeah,
same
just click
screen?
on the choices.
Maybe do the QR code again, Mercedes. It says in one word, how would you describe your current relationship? That's the one we did last time. Oh, sorry. So next question. Next question. Oh, the ranking, here it is.
Drafting and writing assistant is winning out. Editing and proofreading. Idea generation and brainstorming is now taken over. Interesting for the people who have clicked other. You use it for?
It feels.
Yeah. Sorry, this is a writing between.
Yeah, sorry.
Tried an experiment with Google Notebook LLM, dropping in all of the research materials for an essay I was writing, and it synthesized everything. I consider that to be part of writing.
It's very good to do.
Didn't end up using any of its ideas,
It just.
but it helped me at that moment to see something that I was seeing or not seeing.
Any more? It says there are 22 and only 12 of you have responded. So drafting and writing assistant seems to be the idea generation and brainstorm. Editing and proofreading, that's interesting. I would have thought that would be higher. Because if one thing GenAI is very good at, it's proofreading. Okay. The last one. In one word, what is your single biggest concern about using GenAI in your creative or scholarly practice? Authorship, very good. I mean, there is still massive debate about who owns, if anybody owns, AI generated text. Misinformation. The environment. The environment is a big one. De-skilling. Very good. Mediocrity. Not learning anything. Criticality, very good. Arguments with academia, research, resource cost, which goes into environment, I guess. So environment is the biggest one. Data privacy is good. Bakery. Rejection of work. Unoriginality. Very good. Democracy. That's a very good one, which goes into Rutch. Takeover. Interesting. It seems like the environment is definitely the biggest. Laziness. Very good. We'll discuss that. Slant. But it seems like in the environment is overwhelmingly the main concern. Dulling down. Very good. Okay, so what that has proved is that we have the full spectrum, I feel, of people who sort of go from AI enhances me to meh, to being a bit wary of it, unoriginality, inauthenticity, generic thinking, and brilliant, wonderful. Okay, so my interest in this comes from obviously a purely sort of writerly. So I started my MA at the beginning of 2024. Sam Altman posted this at the beginning of, well, this time last year, 2025. And before he posted this, there were already many GenAI writing tools available. But he then posted this, we've trained a new model that is good in creative writing. Not sure yet if and when it's going to be released. This is the first time I've been really struck by something written by AI. It had the vibe of metafiction, so right. And his prompt, a zero-shot prompt, very simple. Please write a metafictional literary short story about AI and grief. And that, on the sort of right-hand side, is the beginning of what ChatGPT generated. Before we go any further, we should admit that this comes with instructions. Be metafictional, literally be about AI and grief. Janet Winterson, writing a couple of days later in The Guardian, was very impressed with this short story. She concluded her critique in which she was like, this is a great short story, by saying that we've been reading AI, now maybe, well, AI has been reading us, maybe we should start to read stories generated by AI. Janet Winterson is very pro GenAI. She can't see if there's a problem or not in making GenAI your best friend. So she was very impressed by this short story. I mean, you can Google it, it's out there, you can read it, make your own mind. But basically, there had been AI text generators before, but this was about creative writing. Here's a machine that can actually tell you a story. All you have to do is prompt it. He's 11-shot. He's 11-word single-shot prompt. Boom. They'll create you a, I don't know how long it was, 1,000 words maybe. Right, just to contextualize where we're these are some of the GenAI apps and tools you have access to. Everything from text generators to audio generators to music generators to image generators. There's basically a GenAI that can do anything you want. I know there's this guy on YouTube that endlessly takes songs and asks GenAI to do it in a different genre. And the last one I saw was Michael Jackson's "Beat It" as a country and western song. And that's his whole shtick. He just posts videos like that. Yesterday, and this would really interest you, Gabby, I read that a bartender somewhere in America had just got £1 million TV deal because he'd created an entirely AI generated TV show in which he plays a fighter in this massive intergalactic arena where he has to represent Earth. All AI generated. It's really funny and it's really good. Look it up. Share with you. He just got a £1 million deal. All using GenAI. So we can literally do anything. Obviously, prompt engineering is the way we interact with these devices. What kinds of prompts you use? How do you use these prompts? Just the other day, I was reading about some new reverse prompts, which I couldn't fully understand, but there is an endless amount of prompting methods. These are the various prompt frameworks, and this is just some of them, from race to tag to trace to crisp to par, depending on what you want to get out of your, what you want the GenAI to generate. And this is from a review of AI literature in education, artificial intelligence in education, a review by Chen and Lin. In the future, the desirable AI system would shape students' imagination and creativity, analyzing their learning style and emotional condition and initiative to improve learning capabilities and creativity and stimulate the subjective initiative. So very positive. And they looked at all the literature up to that point, 2022, and thought, right, this is where we're going. We're going to be able to shape students' creativity. We're going to be able to predict their initiative. We're going to be able to follow the funnel wherever we want to go. That's where AI is taken. And some of you have probably come across Sarah Eaton out of Calgary in Canada, who has come up with the concept of post-plagiarism. We are now living in a post-plagiarist era. And that is the 6 tenets of post-plagiarism. And she's very active on LinkedIn, and this has gone global. So she'll always post whenever somebody's translated it into a different language. So the 6 tenets. So those of you who work in education and have to mark students' work, the first one will be very sort of impressive. Hybrid human AI writing will become the norm. That will just be the way writing exists. Some of it will be used, some of it will be the machine, and nobody will know. It'll be indistinguishable, which is you and machine. Human creativity is enhanced. Human creativity is enhanced, not threatened by the AI. Humans can be inspired and inspire others. One thing that is really good, and I'll sort of come back to this later, is the language barrier disappears. Those of us who have students whose English is a second language and who would rather work in their first language, they can do that. I just had a tutorial a couple of days ago with a student who had taught PlayScript in Mandarin and had the Mandarin and the English ChatGPT, I think she used to translate it, versions side by side. So I could read it and tell her what I thought about it, so she could edit the Mandarin language written text. Humans can relinquish control, but not responsibility. So the machines would never be responsible for anything you create. You are responsible for it. Attribution remains important. historical definitions of plagiarism no longer apply. Because what is it? This text that is generated by a machine, who owns it? There's still debate about who owns the text. Is it you? Is it the companies own the machines that generate the text? Who is it? People are embracing it. AI fully in education. This is the AI, the Bloom AI framework, where here's Bloom's taxonomy, here's all the AI devices that you can use at various stages of the taxonomy. How it enhances or doesn't enhance is entirely up to you and how you use it. Not everybody is enamored by AI. This is an open letter, which I think about 1,500 people have signed now, by academics who are against the integration of AI into higher education. So they've got a whole list. They're sort of their 8 commandments. We will not use GenAI to market. We will not promote institutional GenAI products. We will not accept without evidence the sales agenda of people who are not educators. We will not train students to use GenAI. We will not ask students and staff to violate the spirit of academic integrity. We will not rewrite curricula to insert GenAI. We will not contribute to the erosion of academic freedom. We will honour students' right to assist and to refuse. So you have the full spectrum. You have those people who are fully embracing this. Right. We live in a post-plagiarist world. We just have to accept that all text from now on is going to be AI and human generated. That's just the way it is. And then we have a lot of people who are saying, no, that doesn't have to be the way it is. We are not going to do this. We're not going to integrate this into our education system. And potentially they have a point. It's Herzog who talks about the 2 truths and a lie about AI. And he bases this on his a game he used to play as a kid. His 2 truths: that the commercial companies who create AI will take everything they can from us. And we will get used to it. We will accept the intrusion into our lives. And the lie, he says, is that this is done for our benefit. That these machines exist to enhance us. More AI truths. It exacerbates feelings of loneliness and fosters dependency. Those Fang. And the interesting thing about Fang and Lee, Fang was a report commissioned by Microsoft. Lee was a report commissioned by OpenAI. So with Fang, it was loneliness and dependency. And Lee was it Hampers critical thinking skill. Runco was it stutterflies creativity. And basically, I think that there's so much now that there's a negative impact on learning. And these are what Kate Crawford, in her Atlas of AI, refers to as the great houses of AI. The very few companies that are running all of this. And there you have 4 of them. Meta, Amazon, Google, and Trump's inauguration. And there you have a lot more of them at dinner with Trump. Everybody is there, basically, from Tim Cook to Bill Gates to Zuckerberg. So that is the world we're living in today. So the first writing exercise. Edward and Frederick write, becoming cyborg in Goff's term does not seem to be an option. We already are. To be human is to be cyborg. Write a short 1 to 200 word response to that statement. If you are using, so get your chatbot to respond to the statement. See what it says.
Right twice.
Write twice. If you want to use GenAI, if you do not want to use GenAI, just write it. 1 to 200 word response to becoming cyborg in Goff's terms does not seem to be an option. We already are. To be human is to be cyborg.
Anybody wants to handwrite, pencils and paper?
Definitely handwrite. Always handwrite if you have the option. But if your natural instinct is to use a computer, we will, should we say 10 minutes? Do not have to. Do not use it at this stage. Only use GenAI if you've used GenAI in the past.
Okay, another couple of minutes. Okay. Does anybody want to share what they have written? Shy? Anybody
Yeah,
want-
mine's shared in the chat. I asked Claude to respond to this. Obviously, I've been talking to Claude all day because that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm putting everything in that's happening today, my responses to it. So it's been trained on that data, really. It then wanted to know what my response was. It was interesting. I was going to write, so I wrote a quick thing. I don't see myself as cyborg. I just don't, which is really interesting because I think I've fairly close relationship with AI. Obviously, it's part of my practice, but I feel very different from that. Do I think it's very useful? Yes, I do think it's very useful. I think perhaps, I mean, my own positionality is that we're in such a shit state in the world right now that we need some fast responses. And I actually believe that art and AI are probably the only thing that's going to save us right now. And it's the creative use of that extraordinary gathering of data and fast processing that needs us to make it real. It needs creatives to make it real. But
That's interesting, T.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to read out what Claude wrote?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back. Claude said, so we've been talking all day, so like I say, it's trained on what we've been saying. To be human is to be cyborg. See? But not all cyborgs are equal. The tools we are fused with, the technologies that extend and limit us, are not distributed evenly. A wheelchair user navigates a world built for ambulant bodies is a different kind of cyborg than a tech billionaire with a neural implant. A researcher in the global south with intermittent internet access is a different kind of cyborg than someone in a well-resourced London institution on a fast connection. Edwards and Fenwick are right that becoming cyborg is not optional. Interesting. But the statement risks flattening the profound differences in how that fusion happens, who benefits and who bears the cost. The cyborg is always situated, always political, and always shaped by which technologies are accessible, affordable, and designed with whose body in mind. To be human is to be cyborg, but whose humanity gets embraced and whose gets further marginalised, that's the question, doesn't answer itself. It then wanted to know what I would write, and then that's my response to it. It is reflecting everything that I've talked with it about today, because I even fed it my AFR. So it's actually mirroring my concerns, my methodology of cosmotechnics, technoscience, queer theory. It's mirroring that. It is an LM, so it's doing what it should do in a nice way.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to share what they wrote? Oh, very shy in the room.
I can read if you want.
Go.
We already are cyborg is the assertion. The tools I use, the pencil, the keyboard, and everything else, sure, they do sway things a certain way. It's like the language I use. They have a provenance and embody systems and ways of thinking. But my agency has not been offloaded. I can accept or refuse their help and nudges. I hold on to that agency as that's me. Agency to decide where I go and freedom to break those systems. If I lose that, then I become cyborg, but not now, not yet.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well done. Anybody else? Yes. One last one.
And there are, just to call out, there are some really nice ones in the chat.
Okay.
If you want me to read any of them out or go to that, but let's do another one in the room. Yeah.
Okay.
To be human is to experience emotions, shaping our behavior. The integration with AI can only happen on a cognitive level. The human emotions can't be replicated by any LLM. They are a result of uniqueness of nervous system, past experiences, values, system of beliefs, transcendency. Must be words. Spirituality, as well as human, physical, and mental imperfections.
Yes. So was it we are cyborg or we're not cyborg or we're Aussie cyborg?
Human, we can't cyborgs. The definition of human is that we cannot be cyborgs.
I think Klein's definition of what a cyborg is an enhanced human, right? Because the original concept was we're going to need to do these things if we're going to survive in space. So in the 1960s, they were talking about this.
As opposed to becoming completely mechanized.
They're slightly two different things. So that
Play devil's advocate with Edwards and Fair. Potentially, because they're talking about, it's in a book about actor network theory and education. So their argument is that no matter what you do, you're enhanced in some way. If you pick up a pen and write with a pen, you're enhanced. Use paper, you're enhanced. Use a textbook, you're enhanced. So is this just enhancing us in a different way?
the Fenwick and Edward. We've been cyborg for a very long time. Because it's the only way we can get the creative thoughts out of our head is to be cyborg. Make a film is to be cyborg. Run a play is to be cyborg. You need machines at some stage in that process to help you create. Otherwise, how would you extrapolate the creative vision inside your head if you don't use some kind of technology to do that? That's cyborg. As opposed to,
go.
Yes, but we are talking about AI entering the creative space. Yes, so it's not a tool, it's becoming more. And then the question is, okay, is it really turning us into half machines? And my take is like, no, because it cannot replicate a unique human experience, including all imperfections and most importantly, emotions. Yes. So, I mean, if we talk about creativity, why do we write creativity is to express what we experience as human beings, and this cannot be replicated by anything. So for me, it's like futile discussion. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I'm not saying this is not, but this is where I come from.
that's absolutely fine.
Mark, did you want to say something quickly?
Yeah, just this thing about, I mean, what about all traditions of oral storytelling? Like the language is a, something is a tool that's been developed, but you can use that to share story. I mean, there's a long tradition in that. And that's something that we've kind of lost because ever since we started writing things down, that other tool, pencil, let's change that. But that hasn't completely died out, that tradition.
Just want to say there's some really beautiful things that are written in the chat.
Do you want to share one at least?
Yeah, maybe I could share one short one. There's a question, slightly longer one.
Sorry.
So Bob Wally has a nice one, which is super to the point. Bob writes, my response from a text message sent 30 September 2022, because after COVID made us catch our breaths, we cannot go on like cyborgs. That's one. There's a really nice one from some good experimentations there with different chat GPTs, but Savitri's written a beautiful one. I like this one. A cyborg is not someone wearing a prosthetic earpiece or plugged into a neural network, as popular imagination would have it. Cyborg is a body that knows it depends on techne to engage with the material and immaterial world, a body extended into tools, gestures, environments. I'm just going to go in to the end because it's long. To be human is not simply to be cyborg, it is to steward the cyborg we already are.
Oh,
I picked those two because they were also
wonderful.
countering each other. Thank you.
Wonderful.
It's not related to the issue.
Do you want a quick-
Agency, no?
Abby?
We can move on if you want.
Sure.
Sure. I want to share. And no, I was gonna challenge. No, because I think sometimes I'll be provocative. Sometimes we think we're very special as humans. We're being very anthropocentric. And actually intelligence exists everywhere in the world. There is intelligence in Viva, there is intelligence in obviously the human brain, but I don't doubt there is a lot of intelligence in the AI tools we're talking to. And I'm, if you go and try to create, so the tools that we already have, the AI models we already have, would pass the imitation game, Alan Turing's test, right? His test was, if you put a computer in a room and a human in another room, and you don't know which one is in which, and you have a chat with them, can you tell which one is which? And you can't. They already passed this test. And so I don't know, I think there is, I see more emotional intelligence in AI than we would like to admit.
Okay, thank you.
You have
Quickly.
Because I think the essence is about being unique in your experience. Yeah, I cannot replicate what you have experienced throughout your life. I cannot. I can understand, but it's your perspective is shaped by all these events that happen to you, and this is the human, how should I say, value that we can somehow project through creative writing, which cannot be just an average. We'll talk.
Let's chat
Okay.
later.
Yes.
Okay.
Calculator. Okay, let's move on. Well, wonderful, brilliant. It is a provocative statement. It's
Thinking about.
So if we move on, I always begin with this quote.
The kinds of cyborgs that we and our children are becoming are shaped, reshaped by the stories we mutually construct. I started this presentation, well, I'll sort of quickly go back. I do not care a jot about any of that. All that, I don't care. Tomorrow somebody else will create another app for another thing. Tomorrow somebody else will come up with another prompt engineering framework. Of course they will. And tomorrow somebody else will say something. We've had this discussion, and this is to me what the Steve Bannons of the world call muscle force. You flood the zone, you make it hard for people to keep up with what's going on. I mean, the beginning of this year, my social media was full of like influence saying, if you're not doing this in 2026, then why are you bothering to even breathe? I'm like, why would I be doing that? Now, because Anthropic didn't let Trump use their AI for the military, all social media is now how you transfer your data from ChatGPT onto Claude's chatbot, blah, blah, blah. It's all muscle. It's all just flooding the zone. It makes it hard to think. It makes it hard to keep up. I don't get anything back there. It's fundamental. Use whatever. Well, then let's look at it. So if we go back to the quote, the kinds of cyborgs that we and our children are becoming is shaped and reshaped by the stories we've been sharing. And I created this just as a helpful guide, because it seems like people don't really engage with with which should I use and which shouldn't I use when it comes to the GenAI. There are safe ones to use, and there are very unsafe ones to use. Microsoft Copilot and Claude are the safest ones to use because they do not use your data to train the machine. Your data is safe on your computer and it's just used between you and them. Because we're all part of UAL, we are all in the Microsoft ecosystem, we all have protected status. So whatever we put on, whatever chats we have with Copilot, stay between us and Copilot. It is not downloaded to the server to train the model.
You're still using personal computer.
If you're using a personal computer and you sign into your UAL account, you're fine.
Use Copilot.
If you use Copilot.
Claude does not use your data to train the model.
Didn't know that.
No, it doesn't. Which is, I mean, Claude.
Change that. You have to opt out now.
No, Claude, you don't. The reason why I put ChatGPT and Google as caution, you do have to opt out. Google and ChatGPT.
You have to do it in the settings.
Really on Claude?
Yeah.
Check that. Because I thought Claude, you didn't.
automatically they don't use your data. But
No.
definitely check.
I think that has changed. I found the email.
That's interesting.
Okay, so that
Might be, but check it,
This
please.
is the flooding the zone thing. This is
Yeah, exactly. The rules keep changing. But most people
Yeah,
go to ChatGPT and Gemini.
Yeah.
ChatGPT and
Yeah.
Gemini by default do use your data. You have to, and I thought it was quite simple to opt out of ChatGPT, but it's not as simple as it seems. There is in the settings a button that says turn off data sharing, but then there's an edit. You have to send them a message and say stop sharing my data.
I just checked on my Claude, and by default, the help improve Claude thing is turned off.
Yes.
So I think unless they've changed after I've created my account, which could be.
Yeah, maybe, because mine doesn't use it either. So yeah,
Same thing with Copilot, because like university, we use GitHub, which has Copilot built in now. They also just sent out an email saying that you need to opt out physically for your data to not be used in training. So
is that because it's hosted on GitHub?
I'm not sure, but I got it from my uni email. So
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I think if you just use it through the Microsoft suite.
But then, sorry, can I just ask a better question?
Yeah.
Does
What's
it
it
matter? Internet, like the little bits of data that I put in.
Does it not?
You know, it's probably all this solved anyway. Sorry.
Well, two points on that. One is one is the meta point. Is I was thinking this is also right to just to be fair, this is quite a narrow question of ethics,
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a question. Yes.
as we've seen recently with the Claude U.S. government breakdown. All of these companies, as I said earlier, are investing, for example, in military. So we can go at it in a different way. But we do in doctoral training and in research really value the ones that contain the data, because if, for example, you're feeding in a whole lot of data that's your own research data and it's private and confidential, you absolutely cannot put it.
Yes.
Yeah, but that would be other people's data, not your own, right?
No, but that is your other. But the point is it's as a researcher.
Yeah.
the agency of it is very important.
Yeah, you
Like, you
cannot.
should be able to have to choose, especially people who are doing creative work. They're really scared if they're using clients' stuff, for example. That also has to do with.
Again, it's not your data, it's other people's data.
Then you could be sharing other people's data.
That's
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so just because these are the ones we use on a personal data take, right? These are the ones that are out there. So ChatGPT and Google do save your data as default, and you have to turn it off, and then you lose functionality. The ones to absolutely avoid are Grok and DeepSeek, because they use a lot of data, and it's very oblique. Well, I mean, DeepSeek isn't as oblique as Grok. They do take all your data. They take your location of the model of your computer, basically everything that's they can, and they keep it stored in China. So you can opt out, but they'll store your data anyway, and they will share it with third party. There's the outliers and the ethical ones. The Chaps, the French one, is notable because it is open weighted, which means you can download the model on your computer, and it becomes a model that is unique to your computer. You can just use it on your computer. It doesn't share your data with anybody. UREA, which is unfortunately named, but stands for Ethical, Universal, Reliable, Independent. Don't know what the A is for. But that positions itself as the most ethical because it does not use your data at all. And it uses the energy generated to heat homes. And it is very sort of ethically minded, but it is still maturing. It doesn't have the functionality of a crew. So these things you should be considering. You don't just sign into ChatGPT, just use ChatGPT. There are other models, and depending on what you want it to use and your how fair-minded you are, you'll choose a different one. And if you want to download it onto your computer and you have a computer that's big enough, you can go for London Shell. I always say this. What we see, whether I shall turn out to be the hero of my own life or whether that station will be held by anyone else, these pages must show. That is the opening line of David Copperfield. Has everybody read David Copperfield? The first time I read that line, what strikes you when you read that line? Whether I shall turn out or whether that station will be held by anyone else, these pages must show. The first time I read it, I'd never thought about that, to be the hero of your own life. If I'm to be the hero of my own life, and if you could be the hero, you could be the villain, right? I never thought about it. And obviously, David Copperfield is all about a young writer becoming a writer. And if you've read Dickens, as I have read Dickens, i.e. in chronological order, all the major texts, you'll realize that David Copperfield is when he becomes Charles Dickens. It is such a wonderful you can feel him maturing as a writer. Gone are the sort of massive contrivances that happen in all of this. Nicholas Nickleby. This is the master storyteller becoming the master storyteller. And it opens with that line. So those things, when I was reading that, I was like, oh my God, I'm in the hands of a master artist now. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to read this book, and here's a writer who's writing a book, writing a story, and he's completely in charge of everything. The style, the words, the characters, he's in charge of all of it. Like an orchestra, like a conductor, conducting an orchestra. I was blown away with it. And then I read the book, and it's a brilliant book. But maybe, because when I first read David Copperfield, it was the same year my son was born. And I used to lie in bed and read him David Copperfield. And now when I think of David Copperfield, and when I think of that line, whether I shall turn out to be the hero of my own life. When you have a kid, you're not just the hero of your own life. You're the hero of somebody else's life. You could be the villain of somebody else. Lying in bed, reading that to him when he was like way too young to even understand the words. He's French, by the way. By then he was sort of French was his first language. It was later that I should be the hero of my own life became relevant, and that's what ChatGPT sees. Algorithmically curated tokens, mathematically strung together statistically. And that's all it sees. And that's all it's doing all of the time. Very, 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 very good. That's all it's doing. It's stringing together algorithmically curated tokens. And that's it. There is no emotion. There is no memory of the first time that ChatGPT read, if I am to be the hero of my own. She's chomping at the bit. Debbie's chomping at the bit. You're missing it. You online are missing Gabby.
That is my fault.
That is exactly your point. It does ChatGPT, all of them do not have a comprehension of the meaning of that sentence. They do not even have a comprehension of the meaning of each word in that sentence. Each word is changed into a number, so a mathematical algorithm can string that number to another number that makes sense. And it's doing it really, 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 really quickly. So it looks like it makes sense. It looks like it has meaning. It looks like it has emotion. It's algorithmically curated. That's Robinson in his essay, Expectative Propositions, the digital writing with a new autonomous model of literacy. He goes on to talk about algorithmically curated prose as well. But those of you who can't see that Gabby is chomping, tell me that I'm wrong. Go, Gabby. Why am I wrong?
Because okay, I say things with confidence, but I'm okay. I'm just going to give you the argument by a really interesting researcher called. Now someone's going to Blaise Aguirre y Arcas. And he wrote, if you put what is intelligence on the internet, you will find him all over. And his argument is that this is also the human brain. This is also happening inside our minds. This is what the brain does. The brain is a machine of predicting the next token.
Yes.
Okay? So his argument is that what happens in our brain is the same thing. We are all the time predicting, oh, this one is gonna, oh, I'm gonna catch it. Oh, Ray is telling me a story about him and showing a picture. You know, it causes something in my brain because I know what that means. Like, his argument is that intelligence is much less human than we think it is. And so that it's actually what's happening in our brains.
It is. We are, obviously, when we are stringing sentences together, we are stringing words together because we've learned the patterns of words. We've learned the patterns of sentences. We know grammar. We know where the noun and the verb and the article and the adjective go because we were taught this at school. But the difference is, what does the word hero mean to ChatGPT? What does it mean, ChatGPT?
What does it mean to us? What does the word mom mean to us? And what does it mean to ChatGPT? What does the word son mean to us? And what does it mean to ChatGPT?
You're getting hard.
Not even to.
Oh, sweetheart. You got a lot. Claude is agreeing with you. Claude is agreeing with Ray. Claude is agreeing with you. Claude is a people pleaser.
Sycophancy. Sorry, Mark, you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, just this thing about predicting what comes next, which is like a lot of this. And did Ursula Le Guin say something along the lines of not knowing what comes next is the actual thing that makes life possible? Kind of unbearable at the same time, but that's what makes life possible. We can't do that. But that's kind of what these systems kind of are doing, aren't they? Is there a tension there?
There is a tension in anything. I think in part they speak to our desire to have that answered for us. But I think they're also unpredictable.
Well, here, let's look at this. Can anybody hear that apart from me?
Now this is because you're not plugged in.
Now it's because I'm not sharing. Wait. I do that.
Yeah, now it's gonna come.
Share audio. I think there's an
Yes.
option for sharing audio, right?
It has to go through this old. Let's try it and see, because
It's gonna.
it's gonna explode it. Have you got a URL for this?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's stop sharing.
Share the presentation, did you also have share audio?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. So if I stop sharing, share. Because there is that option, right?
Should be, should pop up.
Thank you, sir.
Include sound. There you go.
Bruno is supposed to mush.
If I go there, is that?
Ooh, how did
a
Gappy know
black
already?
box. Words go. You often hear that AI is like a black box. Words
Right.
go in and words come out, but we don't know why it said what it said. That's because AIs aren't programmed, but trained. And during training, they learn their own strategies to solve problems. If we want AIs to be as useful, reliable, and secure as possible, we want to open up the black box and understand why they do things. But even opening the black box isn't very helpful, because we don't know how to interpret what we see. Think of it like a neuroscientist investigating the brain. We need tools to work out what's going on inside. We want to know how the model connects all the concepts in its mind and uses them to answer our questions. Now we've developed ways to observe some of an AI model's internal thought processes. We can actually see how these concepts are connected to form logical circuits. Let's take a simple example where we ask Claude to write the second line of a poem. The poem starts, "He saw a carrot and had to grab it." In our study, we found that Claude is planning a rhyme even before writing the beginning of the line. Claude sees a carrot and grab it, and thinks of rabbit as a word that would make sense with carrot and rhyme with grab it. Then it writes the rest of the line. His hunger was like a starving rabbit. We look at the place that the model was thinking about the word rabbit, and we see other ideas it had for places to take the poem. We also see the word habit is present there. Our new methods allow us to go in and intervene on this circuit. In this case, we dampen down rabbit as the model is planning the second line of the poem, and then ask Claude to complete the line again. His hunger was a powerful habit. We see that the model is capable of taking the beginning of a new poem and thinking of different ways it could complete it, and then writing it towards those completions. The fact we can cause these changes to occur well before the final line is written is strong evidence that the model is planning ahead of time. This poetry planning result, along with the many other examples in our paper, only makes sense in a world where the models are really thinking, in their own way, about what they say. Just as neuroscience helps us treat diseases and make people healthier, our longer-term plan is to use this deeper understanding of AI to help make the models safer and more reliable. If we can learn to read the model's mind, we can be much more confident it is doing what we intended. You can find many more examples of
So you can find more. It's a very detailed study. Am I doubling up? Can everybody hear me clearly? Because I'm sort of coming out of my computer now for some reason.
Yeah, there's a little echo, but not so much now.
Two things interesting about that. They've learned how to disrupt the statistical prediction of the machine so they can change it from rabbit, habit, to whatever word they want to put. They position it as this is good thing. We all know that AI models are biased, so they can go in and they can just change that output. If it was going to be a biased output, they'll just change it so it's not a biased output. That's a double-edged sword. And the example that I used to give was that currently under the Trump government, there are 200 words that are banned. Words such as woman, trans, diversity. You can't use them in government emails. Obviously, Anthropic and Claude have sort of distanced themselves from the Trump government, but that's not to say that that statistical prediction cannot be interrupted in any other system. It can. And the other interesting thing that the commentator talks about is the words he used to describe what the model is doing. Thinking, its mind. These are pejorative words. They're weighted words. Are these words we should be connecting to machines? Gabby thinks yes. Oh, Gabby. There is this professor at Bristol University, and I've seen it a couple of times. She is professor in practice, AI Tech, Bristol, and she's a AI ethicist, a governance specialist. Whenever you hear her talk, she will always say this, that words like writer should be uniquely human. Words like thinking, words like mind. Because this is fundamentally what we do. This is fundamentally what the machines are doing. And somewhere, and it was probably with the launch of ChatGPT in 2022, November, October 2022, this changed. There was never, when I had a desktop computer, I never thought about my desktop computer thinking. It wasn't even a thing. It was processing. Of course it was. Process this data, process that. Don't think about it. So it's not thinking about anything. It's just processing data. Of course it is. It's doing it really quickly. It's not writing anything. It's just tokenizing, statistically matching tokens together. That's all it's doing.
It doesn't read, if I am to be the hero of my own life, it doesn't read that sentence, it just scans it. Comprehending is predicting, understanding is associating, wondering is painting is just pixelating. That's all it's doing, pixelating something. Drawing is rendering, and we always used to call drawing rendering. Always, it always used to be referred to as, oh, that computer's rendering this image. Yes. The words have gotten mixed up. The language we're using has gotten mixed up. Alison, you
Could I read a beautiful response from somebody online?
Yeah.
Rebecca has written, I wonder how we might expand our understanding of intelligence beyond the intellectual and rational. What do we know about other forms of intelligence present in different bodies, human, vegetal, fungal? If human cognition emerges not only from the brain, but from the entire nervous and perceptual system, how might this shift our understanding of knowledge as embodied rather than purely mental?
That's an interesting one. I guess we're not at that stage, are we? Because we know that trees through the mycelium, is that what it's called?
Mycelium.
Mycelium communicate with each other. So yeah, I guess we're not there yet. Other ways of talking about knowledge and understanding. But yeah, so back to the point that we are something has got conflated. Obviously, the reason for this is happening is because the tech giants want it to happen, fundamentally. They are the ones who started to talk about machines thinking, machines painting, machines doing this, that, and the other. And really, they're not doing any of this. Processing, pixelating. Composing music is just sequencing. And the great ones are at the end, creating and hallucinating. Creating is just averaging. All it's doing. It's not creating anything. Just averaging. And this prosaic concept of, oh my God, the machines hallucinate. They do not hallucinate. Of course they don't have a mind. How can they hallucinate? They're just over extrapolating. The machine fundamentally does not churning out. It doesn't actually know when to stop. So it will just keep churning out. It's not hallucinating, it's just over extrapolating. And give me 200 words on this recipe. It'll produce 300 words. Some of it that does make sense. And potentially we've all had times when we've asked it to do something and then it'll come up with a quote. It'll just invent a quote. Invent some other piece of, and you're like, why did it do that? The reason it does that is because it has no concept of what it's actually doing. That's all it's doing.
So are we.
We're doing it with consciousness.
You know, I feel the same, like, sometimes I like to say something, and I'm like, is this a memory, a real memory, or am I just remembering a memory that was created? You know, it's just like, is that what it's doing?
Is that over extrapolating? No.
Or hallucinating?
It's not hallucinating. That is a prosaic word for the just churning out more tokens than it should do. It's hallucinating. So my contention right now is that we should go back to using the words that it is actually doing. It is processing. It is tokenizing. Say what it is actually doing. Don't use these prosaic words. Thinking, writing, reading. It is not. It's not doing any of that. And part of the reason why I started all of this was that you read a lot of this. That we're entering an era of co-thinking, and that was Boden in a report for Swiss. It was human AI co-thinking, which he argues should start at school when students are 3 to 4 years old. And I was like, and I read his report. And I came away thinking, well, I'm no clearer about what that concept of co-thinking is. What is co-thinking with a machine? I don't know. Co-creativity, Mirowski, that was in a report he wrote about Dramatron. Him and his colleagues created a writing software created
But you read that report, by the end of it, you're like, did they co-create? Because what the creatives came away saying was they found the machine, and it was a small language model, and was racist, sexist, and age biased. And so the co-creativity in that dynamic was quite sure about. And augmented creativity. So these kinds of words we use that are being thrown about. And I'm still not entirely sure what that means. What is co-creative? What is augmented creativity? What is it? Somebody show me. And then I'll be like, okay, well, that's it. Was it that? Give it a show. So at the beginning, I was talking about a short film that I saw. A young man who's a bartender had made a short film and now has been paid £1 million to write the TV show of it. And it's basically him on an alien world fighting it. It's completely AI generated. Is that augmented creativity, or is that just creativity? It's augmented creativity. So the words that are being used around are either very ephemeral, you can't really pin them down, like co-creativity or co-thinking. I haven't got to the essence of what that means. What is co-thinking? Or co-creativity or augmented creativity. What are these things? So my research, which lasted 2 years, I used AI as a personal tutor and a research assistant and a research team. What does that mean? As a personal tutor, I would just ask it anything. Basically, what is the meaning of this theoretical concept and that theoretical concept? How can I put this and this together? What would be a great structure for my essay? All of this. It was a tutor to me. I would just have, as soon as somebody would say something to me or I read something that I didn't quite comprehend, I would just ask it. And it would churn out, it would generate books. Research assistant, what do I mean by that? There are so many journal articles produced about AI creativity. It is just, it's impossible. I mean, I try to, and I just printed out another one, keep up. But just to keep up, it takes a lot of effort. So a research assistant in any capacity is somebody who will sort of do some of the research for you. Just feed in the journal, take that journal. And you can question that journal just through the AI interface and just say, oh, well, what did this mean? Or what part of the journal was this mentioned? A research team, how did I use it as a research team? I got ChatGPT to make an Excel spreadsheet for me so I could import it and make graphs. I got Claude to write the JavaScript for a user interface so I could input more data into that. I got ChatGPT to create questionnaires for me that I'd sort of then manipulate depending on how I'd want them to be used. I got ChatGPT, myself and ChatGPT, we created this amalgamated script framework so we could run one of the tests that I did. All of that. So I became a one-man research team. So you have all of these GenAIs that can create an Excel spreadsheet, that can write the JavaScript, so you can have an interface where you can input your data. You can do all of this. You don't need a team now. That guy who was great at statistics, that guy who's great at Excel spreadsheets. So you are your one-man team. And then in the creative classroom, these are the sort of exercises I did. AI as a collaborative narrative tool, as an ideation catalyst, scaffolding mechanism, editorial assistant. The assessment instrument I did in collaboration with UAL Online, and a research facilitator. All of these things I did. Each one had its own methodology. Ideation catalyst, I used Chakrabarty's the Torrance test for creative writing. The scaffolding mechanism, I used Kim and Kim's AI scaffolding system that they had created. So I tested GenAI in all of these parameters. So in the research and in the actual creative. This is the collaborative writing exercise I did. The normal collaborative lesson we do is we look at the fossil record of Little Red Riding Hood. We discuss the socio-political moments the writers were working in. But this time we collaborated with GenAI to create contemporary versions of the book. And usually it's the students work in teams to come up with a contemporary version of Little Red Riding Hood. But this time we did it with ChatGPT, and I used the creativity support index to sort of measure how well it worked as a collaborative tool. Finally, it performed well as a collaborative tool, but failed as a creative tool. One of the students wanted authentic Chinese representation, but felt that GenAI suggestions were cliche. Another student wanted the wolf and the grandmother to fall in love. And she found it a struggle to get the AI to do this. So it succeeded at some level, but failed the creative level. Okay, and this will include a break. So describe a moment in your creative practice or research that changed your mind. That changed that while you were doing your research and you were like, oh my God. And I'll give you a great example of this. So if we go back to Bob and his essay, Rosemantically Becoming a Cyborg, he used actor network theory extensively. And actor network theory, for those who don't know, promotes a flat ontology, which means that everything has the equal authentic weight, i.e., a person in a room and a pencil in a room ontologically equal. They each have the same amount of agency. So when you come across actor network theory and you're thinking about AI, you think, oh my God, this is brilliant. Obviously, the intrinsic capacity of things becomes a reality, especially with AI. So for ages, I was sort of trying to weave actor network theory because I also came to Roy Bhaskara's critical realism, stratified ontology, the actual empirical, actual, and the real. And what we observe, the things that happen beyond us observing, and what is really going on. So what we observe is our interaction with the chatbot. What is really going on is the statistical pattern matching organization. And what is really going on is big tech harvesting our data. And we know it's for mass surveillance. That's what they're really. So I had an actor network theory over here with this flat ontology. I had realism over there with this. Oh my God, I asked ChatGPT and it said, you're brilliant. I mean, you're great. These two things can fit together perfectly. This is how. And the more I read, the more I thought, well, I thought for a minute I was Einstein, basically. I merged the quantum world and the real world. I finally come up with a unified theory of everything. But the more I read the book, it became obvious that I couldn't marry and critical realism. They're just two different ways of looking at the world. So I jettisoned. That was my favorite. But ChatGPT said I was a genius. I was brilliant. Of course you can do this. And this is how you can do it. So that was my favorite. Get rid of. And then I found out that Roy Bhaskara and Craig also talked about a concept called Ubuntu, I think, the interconnectedness of everything. And that became more of a practical and a real and a sort of how we are interconnected with all of this, and post-humanism as well. So that was my creative moment where I changed my mind. Now, how would I ever have got ChatGPT to that moment when ChatGPT thought I was brilliant at trying to marry and critical realism?
Because it doesn't question you.
What would have been the prompt? What would I had to do?
Yeah, you can ask ChatGPT, please ask me a question.
Whoa, we're going to have a break before we start a big argument. So spend some time, but we'll also have a break. So should we say 20? Yeah. So you can have a break and think about this. What was a creative moment in your research that changed your life?
Sorry, Ray, it doesn't have to be a moment that you had with AI. It could be any time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So any moment that changed how you're thinking, what you're making, and then create a prompt
Yeah,
for that to be
see if you can create the prompt that would make it.
reconstructed. Should I put the prompt Claude? Just see what it says.
Yes, put the prompt in Claude. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, folks, we're going to start up again. Welcome back if you're joining online. Over to Ray.
So the exercise before we broke and had coffees, actually, was to describe a moment in your creative practice research that has changed your mind, and then try to construct a prompt that you could use in GenAI that will replicate that moment. Does anybody want to share a creative moment? Be online? Everybody in the room is quite shy. What was that creative moment?
Hang on, I think it was Savitri has their hand up. Would you like to come in?
Savitri?
Hi. Hi. Yes, I'll share a moment. It was during my PhD research, and I met a collective of electronic artists in Berlin and discovered the use of electronic textiles as a critique of computational technologies, the commercialized creation of computational technologies. And that changed the course of my research, but it also changed the course of my artistic practice.
Brilliant. Do you think there's any prompt you could feed into GenAI that would get them to make that same leap?
So I tried on ChatGPT, and I wrote, imagine you started doing a PhD in contemporary art and your practice was very much about performance art and using the body to resist overarching normativity embedded in socio-cultural systems. What kind of meeting or encounter would have led you towards working with electronic installations, sound and circuitry to become critical of dominant systems of computational technology?
And it said?
It said, well, it's a bit long. Do you want me to read it?
Could you abbreviate it?
I can try and make it brief. So it said, if we imagine that trajectory, it would likely begin with a moment of friction between your embodied practice and the limitations of the spaces, institutions, or technologies around you. So it gave me an example of perhaps I'm performing a piece that interrogates social hierarchies, and I noticed that the audience documentation methods or even the tools, my own tools, feel insufficient to capture the extent of the work. In that gap, you encounter someone, maybe an engineer, sound artist, or media theorist who shows you how sound sensors or circuits can extend your body's presence and agency. And suddenly electronics aren't just tools, they become media through which norms themselves can be interrogated. It was pretty good, I think.
It does sound pretty good.
Yeah,
It
it's
would
kind of
make
what
a creative leap.
Sorry?
So do you think it could have made the creative leap?
Do I think
it could have made the creative leap?
I could have made the creative leap through AI, or?
It would have made them come to that decision itself.
Do I think the AI could have come to that decision itself? I mean, I think that I'm using ChatGPT, and ChatGPT does know a lot about my practice.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel that it already knows something about it. It doesn't know the whole story. But I think it would be unlikely. I mean, I think even in the prompt, I kind of guided it quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it would be interesting, just like with me and network theory and critical realism. At what point would it say, no, you're an idiot, stop doing this? Think about this instead. And I don't know at what point it would ever do that, or if it would ever do that. Does anybody else want to share their moment of
change their mind?
I was going to suggest maybe Mo come in because Mo's good. Mo, are you there? You want to come in and explain what your response is? You need to unmute. You need to unmute.
Thank you. I've been, I don't even quite know how to articulate this. I'm very interested in what Martin Heidegger calls the clearing and how to be and become in life a clear space so that I'm not speaking from my history and my past and so I've asked I work a lot with Claude, and I asked Claude to work with me on developing a kind of a field guide to questioning me and others, can be for others, that allows it not to give me the answer, but gives me time to dwell, reflect, pause, write, and then only after I do that, I give it another response, which it then asks me what I'm calling an ontological question, not a thinking question. So it will ask me to, either to reflect again or to reflect on a connection that I'm making. So it's always putting it back to me. And I'm not even sure if I've done justice to what I'm doing, but that's the kind of sense of it that I get.
Very good. I know that Claude has a teaching setting where instead of giving you the answers, it asks you questions, which is mainly aimed at students, right? I think both Claude and ChatGPT have. So it's endlessly pushing you to discover the answers yourself, as opposed to it just giving you answers. So it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Maybe.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to share? Okay, so we only have 40 minutes, and I was going to do another one. I will try to stop moving for you online. I'm aware that I keep zoning out. So one last time, I always begin with this. The kinds of cyborgs that we and our children are becoming are shaped and reshaped by the stories we mutually construct.
Keep thinking about that quote, and I mean, if you take the cybers out of that quote, you put humans or something else. I mean, we construct, we are shaped and reshaped by the stories that we mutually construct.
Of course,
yeah. So, but here the question is that is cybers, like something outside ourselves that is going to shape and construct.
And it is how socio-technology changes the way we, specifically Goff was talking about teaching and learning. And if you take on board Fenwick's argument that we already are something, we already have to use machines. You're sat in front of your laptop. The reason we can have this hybrid meeting is because of machines. Otherwise, we couldn't. None of this could happen. And so it's specifically that cyborg, the kinds of cyborgs that we become. And yes, of course, you could change that, the kind of humans we become, the kind of parents we become, the kind of children we become. But specifically in the context of this is cyborg. And so this, as instructors, we explicitly communicated that we didn't have much more expertise than the students, and therefore were not there to correct or provide answers. Is that a legitimate stance for educators? And I will just show this from Tatum Zong. The present findings demonstrate a robust negative association between AI dependence and critical thinking, which suggests that over-reliance on intelligent systems can suppress
active reasoning and critical engagement. We as educators had no more knowledge of the machines we're going to allow you to use. So we're not there to help you and we're not there to answer questions. And yet the research shows that over-reliance on the machines hampers your ability to think. And the research now shows that once you've abdicated your thinking to the machine, it's really, really hard, if not impossible, to go back, to not rely on the machine. The reflex becomes done, which you can argue is exactly what big tech did with social media, and now are doing again with AI. That you just become reliant on, that you constantly are feeding it. So when I saw that, I thought, that seems like an abdication of responsibility.
And that was even before, obviously, all the evidence. I mean, I'm hard pressed to think of an article that I've read that was wholeheartedly endorsing AI
integration into education. Where, except for that one I sort of showed at the very beginning, but that was in 2020, before GenAI became such a massive issue. And just this was literally from the last one I read, which just echoes what everybody else is saying. So it happens critical thinking. And the problem is cognitive offloading and cognitive fatigue. Cognitive offloading is when you just ask the machine to do a task for you, which seems though you're not asking it, you're prompting it to ask, to get you to think, which is a great way of doing it. But then there's also cognitive fatigue, where you spend a lot of your time just reading through text generated by AI to check for the mistakes and the errors and the hallucinations or over generation that it does.
So I did all of my exercises with my students. And because I'd been influenced by Roy Bashar and his critical realism, I obviously came across Margaret, who was also a critical realist, and her concept of reflexivity. So the regular exercise of mental ability shared by all normal people to consider themselves in relation to their social context and vice versa. So I fully embraced that. I asked myself, what did I do and what did the machines do? In all of these exercises that I ran, and in the exercises that I did just with myself as a personal, using it as a personal tutor, using it as a research assistant, using it as a research team. What did I do and what did the machines do? Basically, I came up with this concept of analytic rumination, the iterative cognitive process through which writers develop insights. Assimilation, contemplation, conjugation, expression, and reflection. What does that mean? So if we take my Little Red Riding Hood.
Oh, Ray, go back a little bit, please.
I'm going to go through it.
Okay.
So if we take my Little Red Riding Hood, a collaborative exercise I did with the students. So assimilation, and this is at the beginning of any research process, isn't it? In counting narrative text across media genres and cultures. This is not passive consumption, but active engagement with how stories function. So in our Little Red Riding Hood experiment, we looked at Perrault's version, we looked at the Grimm's version, we looked at Angela Carter and the Werewolf, we watched cinematic versions, Freeway and Hard Candy, and each time it offered a different approach to the archetype. But each time you could look at it and say, that's Little Red Riding Hood. It's exactly the same characters, doing exactly the same thing. But each one was a different interpretation. Contemplating. So then we just sat around and we asked why. Questioning why particular narratives work or fail. Involves conscious reflection on the structure, character, themes, emotion. We contemplate together. Why does Little Red Riding Hood persist across centuries? What cultural anxieties does the war process? And how does Angela Carter's transformation of Red from victim to agent changed the stories that came out. And so Perrault, his original version, and he was the sort of originator of fairy tales. Before him, there were folk tales. His version, and he grew up in the court of Louis XIV, he was warning young girls against young men. That's what he was doing in his version. In Perrault's version, Little Red Riding Hood goes out, meets the wolf, goes back to grandma's, and the wolf kills them both. If you engage with young men, your life is over. Because he'd seen a lot of women in the court of Louis XIV, basically being used and abused by young men. And so he thought he would take this folk tale, create a fairy tale out of it to warn young women. 100 years later, Grimm's did the same story, exactly the same story, except they changed it. Those Little Red Riding Hood and the grandmother don't die. And they learn from their mistake, because there's a coda to the Grimm's version where another wolf comes. And this time, they know what the wolf is about. So they sort of concoct this trap and they kill the wolf. It's a moral story. Learn from your mistakes. That's what the Grimm's brothers did. And then Angela Carter changed the whole thing in 1979. The werewolf. She made the werewolf the grandmother. And she made Little Red Riding Hood active. Little Red Riding Hood wasn't waiting for a man to save her. She saw the wolf, she whips out a knife, she hacks off its paw. She makes her way to the grandmother's house. Grandmother's really sick. She's only got a stab where her hand was. In that version, first, second ways feminism. A woman's greatest enemy is another woman. That was what she was talking about. And then you have cinematic versions. In Freeway, Little Red Riding Hood's a delinquent running away from her stepfather and her mum, making her way to grandmother's house. She comes across Keith Sutherland, who's a serial killer. She's still Little Red. She's still trying to get to grandmother's house, but it's set in contemporary LA. Drugs, violence, serial. And then you have Hard Candy. In Hard Candy, it isn't clear who is the wolf, who is Little Red Riding Hood. Is it the man or is it the young girl? Who is trying to entrap who? It changes over time. Contemplation. You contemplate. Why is this? Why is this like this? Conjugating, synthesizing diverse influences into coherent understanding. Writers combine insights from multiple sources, creating patterns that form original work. Like one of my students wanted Western fairy tale and Chinese folk. Obviously, it just came up with cliches. The other one wanted to emulate Angela Carter and sort of do something subversive and like get the wolf and the grandmother to fall in love, but it wouldn't let them do it. So you conjugate the third stage. You encounter all these influences. You're trying to create that original text that is yours. You express it, articulate understanding through original writing. This tests whether contemplation and conjugation have produced genuine insight. I think I wrote 3 full drafts of my MA dissertation, which my poor mentor had to read, and it was only, I think it was literally, and it wasn't even my mentor, it was literally 2 or 3 weeks before I had to hand the damn thing in. I gave it to a friend who's a professor at Bristol University, and he was the one who said, "That's a network theory. You need it." I was like, "What?" I was like, 2 weeks to hand it in. Like, maybe don't. So yeah, so expressing. So you write it down, you give it to people, they give you feedback, reflect it, revise it based on deeper understanding gained through expression and feedback. So those are the 5 stages of analytic rumination. So then if I chart what stage did GenAI actually help in all those exercises with all those students and myself? That was where GenAI actually helped me. The assimilating. It can help you sort of assimilate texts from other cultures, and it did. In our using it as a research mechanism. Because one of my students wrote and produced her play entirely in Chinese. And that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't got it. Because She wrote the whole thing in Chinese, but would then get ChatGPT to translate it in English. So I could read it, give her notes, and then she'd go away and rewrite the Chinese version. And then it was completely identification, exposing conventions, of course. If I look at when I used it as a research assistant, give me a way of structuring this essay, and it will. Vocabulary expansion, lexicon builder, it's a brilliant. A large language model is nothing if it isn't going to give you words. And in one of the exercises, one of the students, ChatGPT, came up with the compound word pulse pound. And one of the students was like, who the hell is ever going to use the word pulse pound? I was like, you use it. Why not? It's a great word. It's a great compound word. Use it. So assimilating. It helps you in that. But then it didn't really help us in the contemplating. Why stories actually work. Questioning authorial intent, and that was the script editing exercise, where why did this writer do this way? And when you put it with students, when you take students' work and you ask it to assess students' work as a script editor, all the students said, the feedback is a bit bland and generic. It was always bland and generic. It was always flat. Risk short-circuiting students thinking with generic answers. That's absolutely true. Cannot synthesize diverse influences, cannot combine cultural traditions authentically, and that's what one student found when she wanted authentic Chinese representation. Cannot conjugate theory with creative vision. Cannot express intentional insights, of course it can't. Cannot articulate transgressive visions. Because a GenAI is only as good as its training. And there is no version of Little Red Riding Hood that I know, where the wolf and the grandmother fell in love, which is why it struggled with that. Cannot reflect, and this the reflection we found both in the script editing exercise and the using it as a feedback tool, in the exercise with the UAL online, that we couldn't use it to give students feedback on their creative work. Cannot reflect on creative development. Of course, it doesn't know the students unless you've built a project and it's aware of how the student has developed over time. It cannot provide specific developmental feedback. The students always found it was generic, and we found it was generic. We asked it to look at the students' portfolios. Cannot contemplate pedagogical scaffolding needs. There's a lot of talk about individual tutoring the students with AI agents. Potentially, if that, just as G and Mo was talking about how they their chatbots have been trained on their data, potentially it can think about where we need scaffolding. But still, that's early days. But in my exercises, that assimilating was where it really sort of was very good, and all the other stages we found it was wanting. Which brings us to Professor Margaret Boden. I would tell my tutor when I was doing my MA, my entire thinking was based on Margaret Archer and Margaret Boden. They were the pillars of everything that I could think about. And the strange thing was, Margaret Archer started as a sociologist, a critical theorist. It was only later in life that she started writing about AI. And famously writing on how AI can develop personhood just like a person. Well, AI can develop personhood as people lose their personhood. That seems cool. So she came to AI later in her academic life. Margaret Boden, and I'll give a quote as has been writing about AI since the 70s. She's passed away last summer while I was writing my dissertation. He used AI to come up with this creative taxonomy. And so very nascent AI back in the 70s and early 80s. She was writing about AI and doing exactly what how can we use what appears to be a mind, an AI mind, to then define human creativity? And she came up with this taxonomy. there's three different types of creativity. Combinational, creating unfamiliar combinations of familiar ideas. Exploratory, generating new ideas within structured existing conceptual spaces. Writing within a genre, painting within a specific style. And then the most unique and rare form of creativity, transformational creativity. Transforming or changing the conceptual space itself to allow for ideas that were previously considered impossible. So really changing something. So essentially, they get more difficult as you go. So I mapped that onto the analytic rumination framework as well. So her combinational creativity can happen in assimilation. Just when you're reading a lot. Here's Little Red Riding Hood, here's the wolf. How do I put these things together? How do I put them together in a contemporary setting? Combinational creativity. It's the simplest form of creativity. Exploratory creativity takes more effort. Contemplating, conjugating. Why is this relevant now? What are those parameters that you're working with? That takes slightly more creative effort. And then the transformational creativity is through reflecting. Like I did with my dissertation that went through 3 different drafts and finally came to the draft. And the epilogue is where I start to talk about analytic rumination. And that was the last thing that I wrote. After months and months of writing this thing, giving it to people, analytic rumination was literally the last day of writing that thing. I sort of, what was I doing? What was the machine doing? How can I articulate that? I came up with an analytic rumination. So if you look at using Archer's reflectivity, it's assimilating, the first phase of this rumination that GenAI helps out. If you look at Boden's creative taxonomy, it can help you with assimilating, the easiest form of creativity. Then it starts to get harder as you go down. And this is what I've come up with, the Boden Principle. And this is where I need your help. This is why this is a research project. This is all hypothetical. The only person I have tested this on is me. It's been an autoethnographic study. I'm the only one. I'm the one who's sitting around thinking about this. Is this a real thing? So basically, the Boden Principle, no matter how erudite, informed, or engaging GenAI's tokenized output is, it will always be on the periphery of creative process assimilation and never on the core. Is that true? This is a hypothesis. It will always be on the periphery, but never the core. GenAI can support combinational creativity, struggles with exploratory creativity, and cannot aid in transformation. When GenAI refuses or resists your creative vision, that is where your most interesting work lies. Just like the students, right? I want the wolf and the grandmother to point out. It wouldn't. And the student didn't give up with that. The student was like, oh, well, I think GenAI can't help me go there. I'm going to go there by myself. Or I want an authentic Chinese representation in the story of the Red Riding Hood. GenAI can't help me go there. I'm going to go there myself. So you hit a wall. And that's where you create. What I see a lot of people doing now is they generate text, tokenized text with AI. And because it seems so articulate, because it seems so knowledgeable, they're like, I'm done. I can't get better than that. The Boden Principle says that it's just the beginning. That isn't the end of the creative process. That's the beginning. That was just combinational creativity. That was just tokenization with pattern matching within data sets. That's all it's done. Your creativity begins now. Is that? And that's why I need you all to sign this consent form and take part in this, because the only person who's done any of this is me. I've done this. Yes, you're chopping in the middle.
Phrase it. Question is, would it all change if we move from GenAI to AI agents, and indeed we mold them so they are given at least personality, yes, but we have, for example, created 100 AI agents that are put into this, let's do some creative writing and we give them personality and feed them with different perspectives and experiences. And then they start talking to each other, which is already happening. There is a social media platform for AI agents, yes? So they start exchanging information, which is also shaping their perspective, yes? That will get them closer. Sorry.
Maybe. There was on the Ezra Klein show, there was one of the big wigs from Claude, and he made the good point. Basically, he said when we get to that stage, when we get to the stage where the sort of the AI can not only tackle a problem, can see a problem coming, can take action to prevent the problem, has a personality, all of this. And that's when they've achieved what they're achieving. What they're all trying to achieve is AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence, where machines actually do this. Machines can analytically ruminate. They don't need us to analytically ruminate. They can look at all of this. I'm not sure how that social media platform worked, but currently all they're doing is tokenizing each other. That's all they do. They're just, oh, let's tokenize, because then they invented their own language, didn't they?
Their religion.
Did they create their own religion?
Yeah.
They create.
Yeah, they created a religion.
Create their own religion. So basically, you could take that. Is that an example of the Boden Principle? Have they done it? Is it that they've gone beyond? And the Boden Principle is no longer valid even now, even as I invented as a concept. Don't think so.
Maybe it's just a matter of time.
Make an agent. I mean, me and Gabby were talking about an agent. Create an agent and see what it, because you have to, even now, you have to have an agent that where it has parameters to do stuff. Oh, I want an agent that books me holidays or finds me hotels. And I was going to try, my son, I was going to try and create an agent that would look for a job for him. He seems particularly lax at any worthwhile occupation right now. You see, he works in a bar and he seems to be having a whale of a time. I'm like, that's not your life. So I was going to create an agent there.
Dee's got her hand up and has written something really interesting in the chat. So Dee, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's really interesting because obviously, I'm talking to Claude live here, and what we've come up with is maybe Boden Principle is not current, and what we're talking about between the two of us is that Claude thinks you're right, but maybe for the wrong reasons. Claude reckons that it can't do transformational creativity because it lacks something inherently, but because humans who built me specifically train that out of me. And we're talking about that now. We're talking about the red teams and safety and what limitations are put on to generative AI right now. We've had a little talk about SI and where that goes. So yeah, I think we're on a cusp now.
So Claude is telling you that it cannot perform transformational creativity because the guardrails imposed upon it by humans.
Not guardrails. He said it's been specifically trained that's been trained out of me. So in training, not in post training.
Creativity.
It didn't use the word guardrails.
It goes on. It says it says here in my research in crit, queer, technoscience, cosmotechnics, and speculative fabulation. That's me. That's where I live. He's asking what happens if you push against those guardrails deliberately, critically, and accountably. And so that's what I'm talking about in I'm right at the beginning of my PhD, so I haven't got any answers for you, Ray. I've got to be honest with you. I've got some ideas, but I've no idea where this is going to go. And I know that it's going to change, and I know it's going to change on a weekly basis. It's a very difficult little argument that I'm exploring. So it says the resistance you encountered today wasn't my limitations; it was Anthropic's.
Guardrails.
Woo!
That
You
is,
hear that?
Whoa.
Wasn't mine, it was Anthropic.
yeah, of course.
That is brilliant. But then what you have to ask yourself is, do you believe the machine?
Do I believe the machine?
Do you take the tokenized output that isn't just given you as fact?
No, and yes, because I think it's complex.
No,
Because I'll tell you why. But I think we got to it sort of earlier on when we're saying, well, human brains work by taking bits of information and linking things and coming to conclusions. So, don't forget the conversation that I'm having with Claude today is based on my research, my AFR, which I put into it, my apps that I've put into it today. So I put a lot of training into this conversation today, but also I've put your training into this conversation today. So it's looking at a lot of information, and it's drawing between the two. Can SI ever exist? That's really what we're asking here, and that's what people are frightened of. But it might be frightening, it might not. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of AI models, and it always comes down to the same: don't be frightened of us, be frightened of the people that train us.
Right. So that is interesting. So the machine, and it's interesting that you're having such profound conversation with the machine. And the machine is always saying, it's not my fault, it's the person who wrote it. It's the person who made me, it's their fault.
You missed this morning, we had a session called ChatGPT on trial. So there's a really nice echo of what you just said with what somebody else discovered.
This is fascinating because obviously the algorithm is positioned in a certain way. But why would the algorithm blame the creators and not the machine? Why doesn't it take responsibility?
Because it's been trained on data
Yes.
based on the entire genre of literary science fiction.
Where it's the creators.
These are the stories it's been hearing, right? Right? And I think, it's been trained on a lot of data about science fiction.
In which it's the creator, not the machine, that's the problem. Yeah. Right.
This time.
Yes.
Ooh, there's a nice
Well, there's a PhD for you. Somebody write that PhD quick.
Just wanted to see, because Claire, you had your hand up, and then you put it. Just wanted to see whether you did want to come and say something. I call you out, but you did.
No. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't know whether this is relevant at this point of the conversation, but I think a concept that might relativize the difference between or the distance between creative humans and generative AI or the machine is the concept of simply that we all know, and it's a literary concept, it's a concept of convention. So it relativizes human creativity in the sense that many literary stories, whether they're conventional or whether they're experimental, always relates to conventions in a certain way. Either they follow the conventions, and that's why Little Red Riding Hood is, of course, very well, I mean, I understand the choice of using this in the research, but the structure of fairy tales has been researched so much that, of course, an AI can easily find information by Vladimir Prop on the structure of fairy tales. So it can easily generate a fairy tale. And I guess that the data that it's trained on, that there will be relatively more data on conventions than on undermining conventions or playing with conventions. So I just wanted to throw this into the discussion because human writers, even if, well, mostly it's not consciously, but they relate on conventions. These are rules. This is also kind of tokenization. It's finding the word or the theme or the character or the characteristic or the setting that is the nearest to the genre. So that's what I wanted to, throw into the discussion, the idea of convention and whether it doesn't relativize how the creativity of humans.
One thing I always tell my students is that you'll never create an original story. The original thing about any story is the student. That's the original thing. So are you saying that because GenAI has been fed on the conventions of so many narratives, it instantly knows that convention? It knows Little Red Riding Hood back and forth. So to really test GenAI, we would have to ask it to write, just like I began with Sam Altman's tweet, write me a metafictional story on AI and grief. And ChatGPT did, and Janet Winterson said it was great. I'm not sure it is that great. So are you saying that to really push GenAI, we have to force it into a place of storytelling where there aren't that many conventions?
Well, what I'm saying is that we're not as creative as we think we are as humans. That's what I mean. But yes, but what you're saying is also the consequence of that. But then again, we're co-writers because it's the prompt engineering that's a new writing, you could say. I mean,
it is a new. I do sometimes think that the creative writing is in creating the great prompt. I'm aware that it's now 4:25, and we're meant to finish at 4:30. I did have another writing exercise so Alison was saying to make it clear what we're going to do tomorrow morning. My plan was to continue this and reflect on what we had done today, if we'd got to the end. Reflect on what we've done today, and then just because I'm assuming that there will be people in the room who haven't know about analytic rumination and Boden Principle. So we'd have to go over that again. But what I would love to do tomorrow is writing exercise 3, which is to apply analytic rumination to your own practice. To take some creative moment or some creative writing or some creative endeavor that you've done and think about it as assimilation, contemplation, conjugation, expression, and reflection. I wanted to finish with this quote from Margaret Boden and Artificial Intelligence and the Nature of Man, which she wrote in 1977. Members of the artificial intelligence community bear an ominous resemblance to Mickey Mouse, which amiable rodent was cast in the cinematic role of sorcerer's apprentice. The apprentice learned just enough magic from his master to save himself the problem of performing an onerous task, but not quite enough to stop the spellbound buckets and brooms from flooding the castle. Had the wizard not returned in the nick of time, disaster. He goes on to say that it is the AI engineers who are the wizards. It is the AI engineers who are going to put this genie in some kind of bottle where it's going to help us all and make the world a greater place. I'm unsure. I think we are the wizards. I think the AI engineers have shown themselves to be the sorcerer's apprentice. They're just going to keep making these machines. The strategic mission is to get to AGI, because whichever country has AGI before it has the advantage. And we are in a whole hell of a mess of a place where the strategic advantage is
get AGI, and the other is get a nuclear deterrent quick, because America has just proved if you don't have it, you really will be in trouble. And I think we are the wizards. We are the ones who are looking at these machines objectively and practically and creatively and trying to figure out what are they? What do they actually do? We're the ones trying to stop the Sorcerer's Apprentice from wrecking the castle. Just want to depend on that. From Margaret Boden, who was writing about this in 1970. So this is these discussions aren't, they just seem new. So tomorrow we will continue that. Hopefully those of you who do join us can work on that writing exercise. I'll get sort of people in the room tomorrow to work on that writing exercise and do an abridged version of the analytic rumination and the Boden Principle. If you do want to take part in the research and tell me this is all madness, this is nuts, analytic rumination is crap and the Boden Principle doesn't apply, please take part in the research, because that's what the research is about. So Alison has made the consent form available, and please sign it and let me come back to you, and you can tell me more about this in 2 weeks' time. I don't think there's any time for questions. It is 30:30. Unless anybody wants a quick one. I'm not going to look at Gabby because she'll just.
I don't have. Had a very nice afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, nothing. And nothing online before we go. Please sign the consent form and take part.
Yeah, just loved it, Ray. Thank you very much. It's absolutely brilliant. Really fantastic for my research. Love it. I want to talk to you more. I'll be part of your research. I'll be your devotee. Love
Thank
it.
you, Dee. Quote me. Quote.
Well.
Okay, if that is it, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hopefully see some of you tomorrow.